I'll bring it.
I'm going to call to order this board meeting for the Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council for December 4th, 2025. Welcome, everybody. We'll start with an introduction.
Kimberly Banner, Executive Coordinator.
Mike Riley, Board Chair and then City Councilor.
John Nielsen, Vice Chair and Redmond City Council.
Matt Ernle, business owner and Deschutes County Community Representative for unemployed and underemployed.
Christine McConnell, Deschutes County seat for Outdoor Recreation and Tourism. Tammy Beatty, Executive Director. Michelle Williams, Deputy Director.
Tim DeBoot, Crook County, representing Ag and Forestry.
Susan Hermrick, Cook County Commissioner. Christy Abbey, Tolley City Council.
Barb Sumner, Prineville City Council.
Cheryl Halloran, Sister City Council.
Tony DeBone, Deschutes County Commissioner.
David Beck, City of Culver Councilor.
I'm Matthew Barr, just a CET driver.
Bobcats and Transit Director.
Aaron Sullivan, COIC agent.
Patrick Norman, COIC Small Business Loan Officer.
Tom Monica, Keith Riggs, Jay Barjack.
Okay, and then online, do you want to start first, Chris?
Yeah, it's good to be back with y'all. Coming at you from the big screen, Chris Piper, Deschutes County Business and Industry.
And Shelby.
Hi, everyone. Shelby Knight. I work in community and economic development at COIC.
And Janice.
Janice Curtis and City of LaPine Councilor.
And then Raymond, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Ray. I end up being an audit partner at Molotors and end up handling your guys' financial audit.
Great. Well, thank you. Great. So we're going to get started with a service story. Take it away.
Yep, you got a speech. How about you go? Speech. No podium today.
Oh, you want us to move the podium? We can get it for Matthew.
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, I'm good. So service story this month is a little unique, but as most of you probably can understand that, you know, for CET, the driver's everything, right? We can't operate without quality drivers, right? It doesn't matter what I do, it doesn't matter you as the board on some of the things, right? Without drivers. We're up to just over 60 right now, probably 65 by the end of next week. So, you know, out of our 95 to 98 employees, depending on some vacancies, you know, it's a big number, right? And as I tell people, especially with my background from ODOT, you know, certainly a CDL driver for ODOT out in the snowplow at 1 a.m. has some really unique challenges, right? But I'll also tell people it was really easy to hide people with maybe some social issues or shouldn't be around other people, shouldn't be allowed to talk to other people. Whereas in the driver world, that's just not possible. And then you magnify that tenfold with just the history of where we've been, and you know, from COVID, and Matt's been here 6 years, so he's been through most of this, but where we don't have enough drivers, you think you may have a day off, someone's calling you to ask you, hey, do you mind coming in? Or you come in and you think, hey, I've got this route, I know everyone, and they're asking you like, hey, you're a quick learner, can you take care of this route? And so when we have a driver like Matt, who is so fluid and flexible and great with any situation, right? Yes, we probably take advantage of him. Hopefully he doesn't say that, but it's certainly an ease for us when we have people like Matt, and that's what makes us successful. Not only that is we brought on 25 new drivers in the last 3 months now as part of the transition to take over contract services in Bend, and we've relied on Matt and some others about doing some peer training, job shadowing, and he's just been great in all those. He'll do whatever's asked, whenever's asked, no complaints, knows every one of his riders' names, all those things, just the ultimate driver. And as such, and why it's special today is that the recent annual Oregon Transit Association, every year they either have 1 or 2 Driver of the Year people throughout the state of Oregon. And Matt Barr was awarded Oregon Transit Association Driver of the Year. representing Cascades East Transit. So we were very proud to have him there. We tricked him the whole time. He thought he was just getting a free meal and to look at some new buses in the lobby. But just grateful to have Matt, just a fine example of what we need in driver, what makes us successful, and and they're the front, right, of everything that we're doing. And it's grateful to have the people we do, and certainly Matt is at the top of that list.
Congratulations. Yeah. I'd just like to say, I have enjoyed my time working with Cascade East Transit since I started. And I wouldn't want another position anywhere else with another company. I love it here.
Right.
And I'm proud to be part of the team
And we're proud of you.
and the focus.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks so much.
Congratulations.
Did we have anybody here for public comment tonight? Around, I don't see anybody in the room. I don't think there's anybody online. So, first would be the consent agenda. Do we have a motion, for approving the consent agenda?
I just want to point out a revision. I was not at the last meeting. On
Okay.
page 2, it does list me as heading up the committee. No, yeah.
That's why you're in charge now.
So just wanted to point that out.
Okay, well, that's one change to the minutes. Did anybody else have any change to the minutes? I did actually notice on page, I guess the second page of the minutes and the program updates, and that first long paragraph, there's kind of a dangling sentence there that's incomplete. So I'd say either strike that, or it says the board has requested that. I think what it's getting to is in the next paragraph, the expectation that COIC will be presenting data a year into the role. And I think that, we've had a discussion about doing sort of a check-in and update, how's it going, how's it working.
And we have another set that I think captured that, but I may not have made it here, so.
Oh, okay.
We'll bring that back to next month and maybe because there also was a change within voting on one of the.
shelter
pieces,
program
which is-
discussion, I
yeah,
voted
exactly.
no.
Yep,
So you're saying all in the
What?
minutes or?
I recommend that you do.
And
Why
then
don't
just
you-
revisit them again. So can I request though that when we have the minutes for next time, that you use track changes to show what the changes
Sure.
have been from what we saw
Yeah.
tonight? So we can say, those.
Yep, happy to.
So that'll also be, Christine was not here, the one I just pointed out, so Tony actually voted no on the coordinator.
Shelter program, yeah.
Anything else? Minutes.
That would be a change to the motion, though.
Yeah, so, why don't we just table these minutes for
Well,
adoption?
we can move the consent agenda minus the minutes.
Yeah, right, sure, we can do that way without a item A. Do we have a motion for consent agenda for just items B and C?
So move.
Second.
Matt.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so I think next we're gonna move right into the audit. And I know I wanted to make a little qualifying.
We're so excited.
Yeah, I know. I know, Raymond, that you've had some big changes and additions into your family and life recently, and I know that involves you, I think, as well as your business partner with a new addition to your family. So we just wanted to say thanks for all your work on this and sticking with us and actually getting this done for us on schedule here, because it's been important to us and been probably an extra big work for you.
Yeah, overall, I would say one note is that instead of my business partner, that's a different gentleman. Instead, my wife ends up being our audit manager. And so slightly different personnel position, but still thank you for the congratulations. And I would certainly say it's only been a few months since we last saw each other, but after that, when Michelle came to me and said, "Hey, we really would love to get back on a timely reporting of our financial statements. Can we get this done in 3 months?" I thought she was crazy, to be honest with you. the size and complexity of COIC ends up already being a bit of a burden. And then also with that life changing event on the horizon, I knew it would be a heavy lift. And that's why, as you guys are hopefully well aware of, the financials themselves are essentially complete, but they are being presented as a draft form just because we haven't been able to get through all our little checklists that we have to tick the box and do the sign offs and internal review and stuff like that. But I have read through them and don't expect any changes. It's just that we didn't feel comfortable formally issuing just yet, but we expect that within the next couple days. But to get into the financials, we ended up having a
Chairman, let me
huge.
just ask a quick question. Do you have anything you wanted to start with, Michelle, or?
Well, I think for the board, so we wanted to bring it to this meeting, and then you'll see in my memo that's attached, we have two different action items. Of course, you can choose and make up your own as well, but one action item would be approving it tonight after Raymond does his presentation. In the fact that, you know, we're gonna get the final in a couple of days. There might be some small changes or tweaks, dollar rounding. We already know that we have some wording changes in the audit letters that I'll work with Raymond on, changing it from Klamath Falls to Central Oregon. Those should only be the changes, or you can table this to next month and then review the final and approve that. So that's all I want to add.
So we'll come back to that after we get it to see where people are with it.
Great. Back to you,
Okay.
Raymond.
So overall, part of that quick turnaround and tight timeline that I just mentioned, one of the huge assists there was that Michelle ended up making this a priority, and it was very apparent because from the beginning of this audit, it was a quick response, information being provided to get us started. And so we ended up getting started with it a couple months ago. And then as we progressed through the audit, Michelle was very responsive, usually only taking 2 or 3 days at most to get us any information requested. And so she ended up utilizing her team to make that as smooth as possible. And we ended up also coming together by pulling in a few other staff members to sort of cover for my wife, who I had mentioned was the audit manager, who ended up being out as part of the events. But in terms of what we were seeing throughout the audit was that it was pretty consistent with the previous year. The only thing that I would mention that's a change is in years past, we ended up having the fund financial statements ended up showing IRP and the Jobs Council as two separate major funds. Those were elected to be major just because one of the concerns from Michelle was that she would hate to have a situation where we change every year. One year it's major, one year it's not major, then back to major in the following year or non major. And so with that, we ended up finally deciding it's been 3 years. It hasn't switched back to major yet. So let's go ahead and combine the IRP and the Jobs Council into a column labeled other governmental funds for the financial statements. And so that was one of the primary changes that you guys will notice as you read through the financial statements is it's no longer splitting those out. And that was based on those two funds haven't been major individually for multiple years and finally felt comfortable that it wasn't going to be a situation that results in a change of accounting each year and that it's probably consistently going to stay non-major for the foreseeable future. Overall, I think maybe what you guys might be most interested in though would be near the very beginning on page, I want to say 2. Yeah, 1 and 2 ends up being the audit report. And that's where we end up communicating to you that the overall outcome of the audit was an unmodified opinion, which is essentially a clean opinion meaning that we didn't find anything that was majorly concerning, causing us to modify our opinion because we felt like it was so wrong that we couldn't address it through a journal entry or other solutions. And so this is what you would hope for in terms of your audit. The best outcome would be this unmodified opinion. And so that is the opinion that we had reached and is conveyed on pages 1 and 2 in the audit report. There's also sections near the back where we end up having additional reports on uh, compliance of each major program and internal control. And those two reports also do not report any findings. I would say the only thing that maybe you guys would be interested in as a potential finding, which I wouldn't call it a finding from my perspective, but it's noted that the COIC did not qualify as a low risk auditee. This is purely based on just the timing of the audit. So, because the 2023 audit wasn't completed within the 9 months that's required by the federal clearinghouse, then Central Oregon hadn't been considered a low risk auditee. Obviously, for the 2024 financials, they're beyond that reporting window as well. So in 25, you'll see this again, but I feel pretty comfortable that with how quickly the 24 audit got completed, that we might have a chance of the 25 audit getting back on a timely schedule, and going into the 2026 financials, you finally will no longer see that. But that would be the only thing that I think anyone would have any sort of uh, eyebrow raising over, just because you would wonder, wait, why aren't we low risk? And it's purely based on the timing. I would
Where
say,
does that show up? Where does that show up in the audit report, Raymond?
thank you for asking. That would be physical page number 39. I know you guys are looking at a PDF, so it might be slightly tougher to find, but it's certainly near the last few pages. There's plenty of notes and stuff to get through before we get there.
Looks like it is the page label.
Yeah.
Yep, this one right here. So if you scroll down a little farther on your screen, you'll see at the bottom of the page right there, that bottom box, it ends up asking, is the auditee qualified as a low risk auditee? And the answer is no, and it's truly just based on that timing. This page might be a good summary page for you guys because it makes it easy to look at. If you scroll to the top, it asks the type of auditor's report issued, and it's an unmodified opinion. Then the internal control over financial reporting shows that we didn't identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies or noncompliance of a material nature, as well as the federal awards reportings being unmodified and no material or significant items. So this might honestly be the best page if you just want a very summarized version. I'm not sure if you guys wanted to really get into the numbers much or just stay at a surface level, but one of the areas that would direct your attention to, if you ended up wanting to get a bit better sense of the financial statements for 2024 that were issued, would be to look at page, I think it's 5 and 6, that has the MD&A and would end up allowing you to see a side by side comparison of 23 versus 24. I didn't plan on getting into that level of detail just because you could make all sorts of comparisons and want to look more into different changes from the previous year. But if you do feel like getting into that depth, then I would also refer you to the notes of the financials to have a lot of detail around the notes receivable and payable and various levels of activity related to Central Oregon that might not be worth getting into in such a, I guess, limited time meeting.
Does anybody have any questions about anything? I know we just got this, so I know people don't have much of a chance to even look at it very closely.
So back a page on page 3 from the letter. I don't know if this is management discussion, I guess. Kind of in the middle of the page, it talks about the position for the PERS and the OPEB and stuff like that. So can you help kind of define the position of the organization in the Oregon's retirement system? Because it says 3.5 million liability and assets at 71,000. I mean, I know that it's just like a big moving window here, but can you put that in perspective for us at all?
I would certainly say my opinion of the OPEB and PERS notes are sort of jaded just because I apologize if any of you are actuaries or whatnot, but over the last 5 years, we've seen these numbers swing quite significantly, it feels like. And so, in terms of the amount that your guys' liability is reflecting, I would say that's relatively minor to some of the other entities that we've worked with that are of a similar size as you guys. Some of them have liabilities of about 10 million. And so you guys, at least in terms of your PERS funding, is looking relatively healthy compared to some of the other entities that we would say could be comparable to you guys.
But another OPEB is other post-employment benefits, right? So
Yep.
it is just a number that's kind of calculated. You guys probably don't even come up with that number. Does PERS come up with that number?
Yes, we end up receiving that number from the Oregon PERS and OPEB are both coming from the Oregon website. So those are numbers that are created by actuaries, and we're able to go online and pull their statements as they relate to Central Oregon specifically. And you guys could do the same if you wanted to look into the whole PERS and OPEB reporting financials. They end up creating their own financial statements for those plans, or you can also just obtain the documents that sort of support Central Oregon's position, as well as page 21 of the financial statements ends up having an entire note related to the PERS and OPEB reporting. It's about 5 pages long. It looks like it goes from 21 to 25. So it's certainly filled with quite a bit of information, along with things such as if your guys' discount rate ended up increasing or decreasing by 1%, it gives you an idea of how much that would impact the actual liability for the PERS liability. The OPEB amount is much smaller compared to PERS, and so the driving factor that really would be of significance would be the PERS side instead of the other post-employment benefits.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I didn't quite get to that note, but now I'll go read it in detail afterward.
Just a follow-up question. I understood everything that you said. I'm trying to determine what it actually means. And so I don't know if this is a question for either of you, but what does it mean? How does it impact COIC?
I'll go ahead and tackle it that way. If Michelle wants to add to it, she certainly can. But it essentially is right now you guys have employees that they're working and they're going to end up getting paid out according to their PERS planned. And so the actuaries say okay, here's how much has been paid into the plan, and here's how long we expect people to live. Like they're, again, that note 8 in the financial statements ends up having tables that reference things like morbidity tables and ages of retirement and longevity of the people once they retire to determine how much is going to be paid out to each person that's currently working. And through those tables, they end up then determining we expect the cost of the employees' PERS payout to be X. And you guys currently have paid in Y. And based on what we estimate the market to have as its performance over the next, say, 20 or even 40 years, we think that you guys maybe need to pay in more money to cover the expected payout in the 20 or 40 years, depending on when those employees retire. So it's trying to match the cost of what those current employees that are currently working to the amount that they're going to be owed when they retire, and trying to then have Central Oregon pay in enough today so that they aren't having a huge payment that's going to become due that they don't have investment sort of building and being ready to use to pay them out when they retire.
I'll add to that we pay, so our rates are set every 2 years by PERS themselves, and we pay that rate. And they can only, I believe what I learned is they can only raise or lower the rate so much. We also, pre my time and Tammy's time, we joined the pool. So we're in a pool with a bunch of different public employers in Oregon. And so if we were to say find $3.5 million that we could pay down, we're part of the pool and we probably wouldn't want to pay down our liability because it's not just going to be shared by us. We're part of the pool, so we don't actually benefit from coming up and paying extra. That's at least what I've learned. PERS is still a little bit of a mystery, even for me. And also the reports that we get to prepare the financial statements here, they're not current 6/30/24 reports. PERS is actually a little bit on of a delay. So I believe the information that we were using for this, these audited financial statements is from 23. Is that correct, Raymond?
Yeah, the measurement date is of 6/30/23, and then they end up trying to update it each year just based on how much was received in the prior year. So they only do a huge valuation and review of all these morbidity tables and estimates based on market performance and stuff every few years. So that heavy lift isn't done every year. It's just sort of done every couple years, and then they try and do some updates in the off years.
So then is the $3.5 million the difference between what the expenses are that are expected for the employee count for 2024 and the difference between what has already been paid in? The X and Y was a really good example because it was using easy to understand terms, but like what's the number that accounts for the difference? And if we're talking 2024, when COIC had 75% of the current workforce it currently has today, what does the number look like in 2026 when we're looking at 2025?
So one thing about the numbers you just mentioned is the net actuarial pension liability from June 30th of 2023 showed an amount of 4.1 million, but since then Central Oregon had paid in contributions of about 600,000, which resulted in that net amount of 3.4 or 3.5 million. And so that's where the liability of the 3.5 ish, we'll call it million, ends up being a net from that 23 liability plus the subsequent contributions. And then to speak to the employees that are brought in, essentially they're starting at day one. So you aren't going to have to owe them for 10 years worth of services on day one. So you're just going to try and match payments related to those employees that had been brought in as the staffing increases to future staffing PERS payments. It's not going to be retroactive, and you aren't going to have to owe a lot of money from their previous employment.
The other thing too is PERS has changed over the years, so we used to have PERS tier 1, tier 2, which was it is a higher rate, we pay a higher rate for those employees. Versus OPSERP, which is more of what we would consider a retirement plan where you're capped at a certain amount. Yes, it's based on your highest salary out of your career or the last 3 years. And so for those OPSERP employees, we really are paying what we should be paying. It's the PERS retirement where there was a guaranteed amount, whether we were paying that or not. That's kind of some of that gap. And most employees now are OPSERP employees. Every once in a while, we'll have drivers that are hired or other employees that come from other agencies that are PERS, but most of the time, most employees are OPSERP.
To maybe simplify it, if you think of back when Detroit was going through their financial hardship, a lot of that was related to they had what we would call defined benefit plans where they were guaranteed a payment at their retirement. And as Michelle mentioned with the OPSERP, it's much closer to a defined contribution plan. So you have to pay in so much today, but you don't then have that risk in 30 or 40 years when that plan may be under or over funded to then provide the benefits that were guaranteed. So that's where those PERS tier 1 and 2, like she was mentioning, the PERS employees are the ones that are the more costly ones for this liability because they fall into that defined benefit situation instead of a defined contribution.
Right. But on this, thank you for the explanation. I don't think I'm interested in trying to address the overarching PERS topic, but as a board member of COIC, I think the area that I would offer and suggest is that how can we as a board see these things from year to year? I mean, the 4.1 million down to 3.5 sounds like we made progress by paying it down with the condition that it helps us in some regards, but it might not help us in more if we keep paying it down. But it sounds like we made progress from 2023 to 2024, if I picked up on that. So maybe there's a good job that's in store.
It's wild swings, honestly,
Yeah,
the numbers are wild swings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a great, I think it, when we get into the budget, and so when we go through the budget cycle, I think that'll be a really great place where we can dissect that a little bit more and you can start to track that as a board member as well.
Good.
But first, maybe the most difficult piece is local government trying to navigate budgetary. I mean, it's as close to getting out your magic 8-ball, shaking it up and getting the answer, but it's an important piece because the cost and the risk is so high. So you're spot on.
Other questions?
I did. I'm
A
sorry.
real simple question, I think. I'd like
Yeah.
to ask it of Ray. You had mentioned the change on the IRP and Jobs Council. You elected it to be a major, just because there, I guess, hasn't been any change year over year. I guess I'm just trying to get more clarity under why that is now going under other government funds and just what changed, just for my own education, year over year, and what's the benefit of putting it under other government funds?
So perhaps when I first described it earlier, I ended up being a little unclear. So
Yeah.
last year in 2023, the IRP and jobs, those were separately identified as major funds, but that was only at the election of management because what we were trying to avoid is a situation where we would show it as major and then have additional work in the following year to show it as non-major and then have a situation where it suddenly became major again. There's criteria to determine if it's major or non-major based on if it's more than 5% of the total assets, total liabilities, or has more than 5% of the total revenue or expenses for the fiscal year. the jobs and IRP hadn't met any of those criteria for the last, I think, 3 years. And so finally, after having 3 years of them not being major, we finally decided to no longer elect to treat them as major, just because the only reason to elect that was to avoid a situation where it pinged ponged back and forth between major and non-major, because then we would have to change the formatting of the financial statements, which would be more time consuming than simply electing to leave them as major. But now, after 3 years of them being non major, we feel confident that we won't have that ping ponging situation and would just prefer to bundle them together and show them as other non major.
Well, in
can
those
add to
three
that.
years, is that 3 years like a standard marker, that you look at? So is that something we would want to look at 3 years from now if there's a 5% change or what have you?
No, overall, it's just that if it becomes major, it has to be split out and reported as major. But if it's minor, you guys can always elect to report it as major or minor. And so it's something that when we go through the audit, we'll identify whether it has to be major or not. And we'll work with Michelle to then report it as major if it's a requirement. But at this point, for the last 3 years, it hasn't been a requirement. And if it does become a requirement, that will be brought to your attention as the financial statements will be presented with that split out again.
Great, Ray. Thanks, Ray. That was kind of my follow-up question on the oversight piece. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah,
And I can oh, go ahead, Raymond.
I was just going to say that I realized that at the end of the questioning is that it was more a matter of you wanted to make sure you were aware of what your oversight would be and how to make sure nothing got through that you guys hadn't been aware of. So makes sense.
Yep, sure does.
And Raymond and I did talk about that too. So the reason they put it separate in previous years was because when you get the loan reports for the finances for the loan program, you see LJC and EDA and IRP separately. And so, yeah, we could have combined them years ago, but then to me, you lost some transparency. 2 months ago, I think it was, we brought to the board, can we close out the IRP program, pay that loan off? And so since we said yes, by combining that now into other government funds, IRP never will be major again because we're actually paying that loan off. There hasn't been activity in that. And so we'll be shifting that to where it is either in the LJC fund or a subset of the LJC fund, depending on what the board decides. So.
Thanks, Michelle.
Matt, did you have another question?
I don't, no, it's budget related, not audit related. I'm good, thank you.
Okay, all right.
We have time. Okay.
I'm not gonna.
All right, okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, okay.
I don't.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind going back to Michelle's, I guess it was a third option. It was really hard to tell, but you had mentioned something about a recommendation to table for next month to review final.
Yeah, I think that's the choice before us tonight is if, the people want to take the time basically to read through the report, see if any other questions come up. My hope would be people would ask those questions maybe via email so that we could get some of them answered. And then we could actually, discuss ones that seem important. If there's some issues that people feel that the board as a whole needs to talk about, and then we could formally accept this audit in January, or are people comfortable just moving forward with accepting it? Because we don't get to fix this thing.
Right. So
We get to ask questions about it, which might result in some clarification of language or whatever, but the numbers are the number and the auditor is finding it.
So it doesn't mean that we couldn't come back in January and talk about those questions.
Yes, we could still do
Yeah.
that, right?
So I
But,
just-
in the interest of transparency and as a, board, these are public dollars and stuff, do we want to take the time to have a little more time for people to review it? And for those, let's do that and ask their questions and then.
So by delaying the acceptance of this report, how does that delay the next getting started on the next one?
it hasn't and won't delay the next one. I've already started on the next one, so. It really is that it'll sit, I think there's a few small changes that, we've found that, we'll need to change in the letters, like Klamath Falls is in there and that kind of stuff. But really, it'll sit there and we'll get the final report. And then that'll be what you can approve next month if you'd like. And I mean, we don't have an extension. That extension only lasts 6 months and we're way beyond that. So, you know, it's really up to this board if you want to take another month and review the final issue. Or if you feel comfortable with what you have before you tonight.
Yeah, it's substantively different than it is today, a month from now, other than the correction, I mean. We're putting off the vote for the appearance of transparency, but is there anything that can actually change or would actually change?
It shouldn't, but I think that's a great question
Yeah.
for Raymond too. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
we prepared these financial statements and they're ours. But at the same time too, he reviews those and it's his opinions and stuff in there, so.
Well, but we're not approving his work product, we're accepting his work product and asking questions about it, and so.
Yeah. We don't actually get to tell them we don't like the numbers.
The proposed motion is.
I think what I got out of listening to Raymond and, you know, I feel comfortable moving forward just from my own opinion, but, you know, you had mentioned, Raymond, about the audit and there's no concern, no need to modify the opinion. So that kind of tells me that we're kind of pretty close to a final. Wouldn't
Yeah.
expect anything really major to make a difference from today to if we were to push it out.
I don't expect anything significant to change. Overall, like Michelle mentioned, it's going to be some small typo, cleanup of rounding, small things like that. We've already done the testing and field work, and so those numbers are what they are, and everything's materially correct. It's just a matter of cleaning it up just to give you a nice, clean presentation when it's sent out to the Secretary of State and the agencies that it's formally filed with.
So maybe a quick straw poll. How many people are comfortable with accepting, you know, it tonight with, which is essentially the first motion that's in your packet? With only changes for small edits such as dollar rounding and small immaterial corrections. Okay, so I think
So moved.
general sense of that. Okay, so moved. To have a second on that one.
I'll second.
Okay,
Second.
that's
Yeah,
been
go
moved
ahead.
and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Passes unanimously. Anything else?
I'd like to thank you, Raymond. I know, I mean, he's probably excited to not hear from me for a few days now, but I appreciate you really working with me and with my team and your team to make sure that we could get this one done as soon as possible. So thank you very much for the dedication and all of your help.
Yep. And to you, Michelle.
Yeah, great
And
job,
I think
and
it's
Steve, yes.
2 audits in 4 months.
Working on.
You deserve it. It's a good time off and a nice vacation.
Absolutely,
See you on Monday.
yes.
Yes.
And we're all excited to be catching back up on.
Yes.
regular schedule, too.
Yep, yep.
For everybody's benefit, and appreciate your help with that.
Raymond, thank you, and again,
Yes, thank you.
congratulations to you and your wife.
Thank you. And if you guys have any questions that you guys want my opinion on or feedback, certainly feel free to get those to Michelle and I'll be happy to respond to them in some sort of memo or set up a call if it's a more lengthy discussion being requested. And other than that, we look forward to getting it into 25.
What's the baby's name?
Roman David Lang.
Very good. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And we sure appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you and have a good night.
Thanks, you too. Okay, so we're on to the next topic, the grant application opportunity.
You bet. So
Beaver
this-
Foundation.
Yes, thank you. This is a unique one in that we bring before the board new grant opportunities of relationships in which we have not either applied for the grant before, or it's an organization in which we've not, well, we wouldn't have applied for it if we had not applied with the organization. So we typically don't bring ODOT grants in terms of, you know, things that are just repetitive that we do every year, that sort of thing, unless it's required to have the board signature. So this is a new one in terms of a relationship with the foundation that the CED team has been able to outreach to, and the timing of the grant writing and the submittal and the response did not match up quite as nicely as we would have liked to have had in terms of bringing it to the board. So tonight's proposal was that we were going to be bringing it in terms of, if we were awarded the funding, would you want us to receive the funding? It happens to be the shortest turnaround of an approval of a grant in terms of, in that time frame, we then were awarded the grant. However, we do not have a copy of the contract yet. So I wanted to set the context that this is not our customary way in which we bring grants to the board. And I don't want to set up the anticipation that we should anticipate that we would ever have another grant that we received so quickly either. And so the Weaver grant is through the Aspen Institute. And as mentioned, it's a new partnership if we decide to go in this direction. And what they're looking to do, it's based out of small community opportunity to weave communities together. So they're truly, it's a literal meaning of weaving. And what they're trying to cultivate are host organizations across the United States that would be willing to partner with them in a pilot, that would be working with small communities in being able to small grants in the amount of $2,500 to $5,000. We would be awarded the opportunity to keep the program. We'd be required to keep it going for 4 years. It is $225,000 for the first 2 years. And those grants, we are required to contribute or allocate to the community no less than 20 grants a year. And so some of the dynamics and questions that you might have would be, well, first of all, how might this fit into the work that we currently do? So let's take Lapine in terms of a small community and the Newberry Regional Partnership. So the Newberry Regional Partnership gets started. Now they have an event that they want to do to bring their community together to be able to talk about something that's going on. But there isn't funding to be able to pay for the food or the facilitation or the room. So this would be an opportunity for them to tap into this fund and be able to cover those costs. So to some larger organizations, $2,500 to $5,000 may seem like really, gosh, what's that really going to accomplish? For a small community trying to weave together community goodwill and bring about some opportunity to create conversation, these dollars might be incredibly meaningful in being able to do that. And so for us, working with our community and economic development team, we see this as an opportunity where we sit with the community and say, let's tee up this wonderful, planning project or whatever it might be. And oh, by the way, we don't know where you might be able to then take the next step of actually implementing. Now we'd be able to marry that together and have an opportunity to say, and oh, by the way, we also have a small pool of funds that we'd be able to assist you in being able to carry forward. And so the questions that you, if I were in your shoes, I'd be asking, so, okay, it's a 4-year, you receive $225,000. How much of that can you use for administering the grants? We don't anticipate a heavy lift in terms of the administering of the grants because we do a lot of this already. And so think of the septic program, think of the, even the COVID related funding that we've done. Think of so our team is already doing a lot of sort of grant administration, and they want the reporting to be light for the community and light for the organization that's the host. Because again, they're trying to pilot with communities to find out how might this change the dynamics of the fragmentation that happens in communities without an opportunity to come together, particularly in divisive times that we might be experiencing, such as now. So the first 2 years are paid with the $225,000. We can use $25,000 of that for administrative. We feel like that is braided into what we already do. So the question that we've asked is, okay, so we are required to keep the program going for 4 years, but we have funding for two years. We are allowed to use that funding across the years. And so let's say that all of the grants in the first 2 years are $2,500, we won't get to the full amount. So we can use those dollars in the second and third year. in addition, we've reached out to some of our other foundations and said, how do you feel about this? Roundhouse, others, Ford Family. This is something that they're interested in because they see this as a leveraging of their funding as well. And they are the ones that are helping to support a lot of the rural capacity building and community building work that we're already doing. And so what I'm asking for tonight would be, does this sound like something that you all might be interested in us doing? And the other would be, we have in writing but not in contract, what it would mean in terms of, okay, so year 3, we're fine, but we don't have any funding in year 4 because insert whatever happens. I mean, pandemic happened, so anything can happen. What is the clawback, or what happens to COIC? What is our risk in doing that? And what the Aspen Institute is saying is that we recognize that there's risk on our side as well as your side. And so in that, we are going to be working with you in what that would look like. Through this, they're going to be doing some learning across the United States with host organizations and being able to learn from others about how they will be leveraging this and how they will be building a program. And so I feel confident not only in our team and being able to fulfill these obligations, but I also have confidence in our funders that we already have a relationship with, that they're interested in this type of partnership to be able to leverage their work. And I also then want to say that until I see that in writing, though, I wouldn't feel comfortable in suggesting that tonight you do anything other than that it would be contingent upon the contract language matching up with relieving us from that requirement should we not be able to fulfill the full 4 years. So tonight's ask is, how do we feel about this? Does this seem like something that we might want to do as a partnership? And I would say there's excitement on the Aspen Institute side because they were so quick to say, yay, we have an organization that's interested. We are unique in a lot of the smaller community rural work that we do in rural community building. And we are the boots on the ground for the Ford Family Foundation, which is doing that work across the state of Oregon as well. And so instead of having someone here doing that on their behalf, it really is us. So I'll stop there. Shelby's with us tonight. Did I cover all the bases? Anything else that you would maybe add to it?
Yeah, thank you, Tammy. I think you covered it. Just to reiterate, I think the rural community and capacity building work that we do is one of the reasons why we were selected. We were one of 25, which is really exciting. And then also, again, just to reiterate the interest from the Ford Family Foundation and some of our other foundation partners in something like this, because what we're bringing is matching funding to a program that they have sustained for us and with us for 6 or 7 years now. So it's a real opportunity to bring some additional resources and capacity and partnership to that work.
What kind of organizations are eligible to apply for the grant?
So organizations, let's see. So I brought the guide. Do you know that off the
I
top
have
of
it.
your
Yeah.
head?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it can actually be individual community members, community weavers or builders, as well as small organizations under operating budget is under 250,000. So very small nonprofits.
Does that have to be a 501c3? I mean, does it have to be a registered nonprofit, or can it be if it's a local neighborhood association that does not have an
Yes, it
established
can.
nonprofit?
Yep.
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 And so they have to be in communities that meet some kind of rural definition in terms of population, or how do they determine? I mean, because like, for example, Ford Family Foundation, I know has definitions of rural. So, Ben certainly doesn't qualify, and as I understand it, Redmond is sort of on the cusp and moving to not qualify soon or something like that.
Right.
So does it something like that apply in this situation?
No, not through this particular funding. So through our work, yes, with Ford, we are beholden to working with communities under a certain number in population. This would actually help us distribute grants within that program to some of the areas that we haven't. So think City of Redmond, City of Bend, Warm Springs, etc.
Where are they based out of? I see it's national, but
The Washington DC, and then they also have a Colorado office. And I think a New York office as well.
Universities and local governments are also welcome to apply to be a host, community host. And so, but again, I think the marriage there, not applicable to like who can apply, but other hosts that might be out that we're learning from as well.
When I was reading this, I was thinking microloan. So I asked Patrick if he knew about this. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but now I see why. These are grants.
And there is an internal, because that was my initial reaction, how do we leverage this? And I was wondering, how do we leverage it with some of the housing funding that we have, because we know we have gaps. This really is meant for building trust within communities. So to the degree, yeah, I think it would just be
And it
different.
was easy to find it pretty quick online. I don't know if that's what you were just doing too, but at weavers.org, it's easy to find it. It says it's a national effort and they want you to kind of feedback nationally about your successes and maybe do some partnerships across the country.
So would the plan then, in terms of outreach and making the communities aware of this, it's just gonna kind of piggyback off of the work that y'all are currently doing? There is not gonna be an additional emphasis on, this would be kind of an, oh, by the way, we can also do this, but we're not making a push for it kind of beyond the work that we're currently doing, which is why you feel the admin fees are reasonable versus the size of the contribution.
So I would say that's yet to be determined. We want to leverage this in a meaningful way. And it could be easily a death by 1,000 paper cuts if we're not careful. And so I think our priority and the way that the grant was written is to leverage it alongside the work that we're doing for community building and capacity building already. But to the degree that there may be opportunity for other organizations that might want to use this, we need to, as a team and likely even with legal counsel, like how do we, because we're a public organization, how do we do that in a transparent way, but yet not have it just be one and done? Because there's monitoring, reporting, and some alignment and weaving, if you will, that we are going to be required to do. But as mentioned, our first blush at this is it matches so well with the community, the rural community building and capacity building. To the degree that we wanted to cast the net even further, that's sort of that's a question. Yeah, and we hadn't talked about it a whole lot yet because it's just, I mean, holy cow.
Just wanted to chime in a little bit. I did a little bit of research on this as well. You know, Tony had brought it up, but a few days ago, and I really find this really aligns well with COIC, lines well with our mission, lines well with our core values. It's really supporting people who are overlooked. And I think it's been brought up to the fact that, you know, our role here is to figure out ways that we can utilize funds to help strengthen communities that we serve. And these micro grants that we're talking about really supports that. And what I found really interesting in reading about it, they talk about, you know, the social fabric of the communities. And I think it's even been identified as a social fabric project. And so I really like that a lot. And I like how it aligns with our mission. We don't have mission creep with it. It really fits in. I think Tammy nailed it on the head there. We're not nailing Jello to a tree on this one. But with that said, I feel comfortable too with the fact on the funding and looking at the future because of the support that we have, you know, like with the Ford Foundation. I mean, some really solid foundations that are here to kind of walk through this with us. And I think that's really important to be mindful of. And yes, the other fact that, you know, being it is a grant, we have processes to follow, right? We have reporting to follow. We have metrics that we have to support. So the oversight's going to be there. But really the bottom line is we're able to provide some smaller grants to communities that really need it. And especially in these times where grants are being pulled away or not even being funded, to have something like this is a true gift. So that's my piece.
I agree with Chris, and like I think this fits really well. Like the COIC is so well positioned to manage a grant program of this size, obviously because of all the other programs managed. But what we see with our grant program is that the funds are encumbered to very specific types of projects, but also $2,500 to $5,000 project is manageable for a rural community as opposed to like 50,000, 150,000, like that, it requires the whole community to be involved where you could have a smaller entity manage a project of that size and be successful, especially with the support of COIC. So thank you. Yeah.
What is your fear level for the form?
So that's where I want to look at the language. It's all in what you're signing for.
That's the
And
only
that's
part of
it,
that
yeah,
that I'm scared of,
exactly.
Is this an unfunded mandate into year 4?
Right.
Well, and it's actually could be year 3.
Should be,
You
yeah,
could
if you-
spend all
Yeah.
250,000 in year 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
then you have to find another 250,000
Sure, yep.
for year 3 and 4.
And does it say in there like what funds those would be? Like, would you have to find another grant program or? So they're looking for us and they're going to be working alongside us and learning alongside. So we won't be in this we're gonna be, think of it as like a cohort learning. And their language when in here where they're talking about related to evaluation, related to reporting requirements, light lift. I mean, I'm not suggesting that they're sort of tossing the dollars over the fence and then just sort of turning a blind eye. But they are really looking for development of this as a mechanism of moving forward with it ongoing. And so their language is that they will know already before year 3 arrives. We will already know if it's not working. And so at that point, that's where the language, what's the opt-out then? If you.
We own something.
Right, and what they're saying is you won't because we are in partnership together on a learning cohort with a pilot. And so that's where the language in which the contract you would sign needs to mirror that in terms of your opt-out. And it's not maybe unlike with the Central Oregon Health Council where they allocate hundreds of thousands, if not even more dollars, knowing that there may be the return isn't what they thought it might be, but part of it is the learning of their anticipation is that the program will go for 4 years. But the reality is for them that may not be what the community is able to do. So therein lies, I can't answer it more other than until I see the language in the contract. Does that match up with the language that they're saying in terms of answering that question?
So comment on that, Tammy. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Tony, go ahead. I didn't see you. But I was just reading the motion that has been suggested in the pamphlet on page 28. So that motion doesn't seem to align with what you're saying, Tammy, when you're talking about language. When I'm reading that motion, it seems like we're not, I don't know what the right word is. If there's a cautionary word in there that we need to add.
So pending contract agreement was what I was meaning in terms of that.
Okay.
That I may read that. And it is more prescribed in terms of where there's a clawback and we would need to pay back the 225. That's not something that I would sign on behalf of our organization. That's a commitment we can't make.
Right.
But we could make a commitment if it is truly that in partnership, that there is and I don't have in my brain what that language might look like, but clearly we're not the first organization that's going forward in partnership with them. But I want to be able to say, I read the language and it gives us exactly what I said, which is we are in partnership and that there isn't a clawback. Or the language does not say that. It says that there might be, and I might come back to you and say, we chose not to receive the grant because it puts us in the risk is not one that we can shoulder as a grant and contract funded organization. I couple that with that we have reached out, as mentioned, to our funders in terms of, is this even something you're interested in leveraging with us? And the answer is yes. So I do feel confident that to some degree, we will have other local funds from other funders, foundation funders that see this as a partnership and how they too can leverage their own funding. So I don't know, I know that's not a great answer, but that's what I
No, it
have.
gives more clarity to the suggested motion.
Yeah.
As to how it was written and why.
But I think you should have the motion be what you feel makes the most sense in terms of the language that you want us to capture.
Yeah, I think the word, and administer. But I just wanted to open it for others, to give some thought and feedback after, since of this discussion that we've had.
Yeah, I love that we're looking at new partnerships. I think I have more reservations than maybe I'm hearing from other people, and that's okay. I'm comfortable with that. I don't know the Aspen Institute. That's my reservation. The Ford Family Foundation, I know. I'm newer to the board, so at the end of the day, I don't think it matters that much other than my voice here. I've seen and read reports of large amounts of money from foundations being used to promote certain ideologies over time. And that's where my reservation is in simply saying, let's do this, is I see that there's training of the Weaver sites. And so I think the contract language could indicate if there's certain Weaver representatives that are going to participate in the events where the money goes.
Yeah.
Or if there is a message that is intended to be carried back from the trainings that is presented at the events. And I'm not saying it's bad.
No, but regardless of where that would be a political piece that would not be comfortable.
What I know is there's no free money.
Yeah.
There's always a reason.
Yeah.
And I don't know the Aspen Institute and I don't know the reason, but I know that it's not an omnibus organization.
Okay.
Well, I would have the same reservations as Matt. I tried to Google Aspen Institute and found their website, but I didn't learn much. But given that, that's not my big concern. My big concern is the admin responsibilities, as outlined here, seem to me to exceed the dollar amount that you think is available for admin. They're looking for travel, how many times to their stuff, how many times a year, how many over the course of 4 years, that a couple of grand a trip. That's gonna eat up a lot of that $25,000 that you said was there.
We're required to go to one training and that is in January and that
It
is.
says trainings.
I think that was noted in the packet.
I'd like to add to this one.
But then you're also hosting regional advisory committees. How often? What's that look like? You're facilitating these 20 gatherings or whatever, perhaps. So now you've got staff time and facilitation. How are you going to pay that staff time? You've covered the room cost, maybe the food cost with the micro grant, but you still got costs. Then you're helping the Weaver folks evaluate and make the program better. So there's time commitment in creating reports, interjecting those thoughts at some time in the future. So it's more than one meeting in January. It's coming at least back again to say, okay, so what? Did this matter? So I just think there's a lot more into the admin side, or maybe don't call it admin, but certainly staff time.
Sure.
Than just administering 20 micro grants a year.
Right.
Are they paying for the training costs, like the flying out there and all that stuff? Is that?
So they are, and
So
this
that-
would be why we are wanting to tie it first with the core work that we're already doing, because our team would already be in the room working with that organization. And this would be, think of it again, using the Newberry Regional Partnership. And this goes to why we likely would not do a fully loaded, hey, please come one, come all. We'd be matching this with the work that we're already doing in community. Madras might be another example. So Madras has, they're working through their strategic planning effort, and there may be additional community conversations that they want to have. We already are contracted with other funding to be able to offset our staffing costs with that. This would augment the ability for us to pay for things like food or maybe childcare or maybe other ways that would be, again, bringing people together for that conversation. And that's where we haven't had an internal conversation quite yet as far as how broadly we might use or maybe announce these dollars. And maybe keep it closer to the work that we're doing with Ford and with Roundhouse and our current foundations, which are wanting us to continue to grow those programs around our rural communities, less than to letting it go out to the general broader region and allow it just to be, we just wouldn't have capacity to do that.
But you gotta do, it says you have to do 20 of those a year. So you've given two kind of examples. And then you said, but we're gonna limit our staff to already what we're doing, but you gotta get to 20.
Right.
So
Well,
I just think,
with core three, like, so Shelby did a presentation for core three for League of Women Voters at the Lebanon Library. Would that theoretically fall into this type of?
It could.
Okay.
It could, I would probably have it be around a more general topic rather than a specific project, but yes. So Shelby, do you have other thoughts in terms of the staff capacity piece?
Yeah.
She is our administrator for that part of the department, and so she's given this a lot more thought in terms of it, because they operate essentially as attorneys in increments of 15-30 minutes, to an hour build to certain projects. So it's not lost on us the staffing capacity piece of getting too broad and not being able to, because it puts our team at risk. So in terms of keeping the team. So
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think it's a great point, and one of the first things that we talked about when we looked at the grant. So there's a couple of things. Again, utilizing existing funding through our RCB program, which Tammy spoke to. So we have $80,000 this year for staff time to do this work already. And so it would just be piggybacking off of that and honestly adding capacity to that work to be administering this process. And then the next piece, to the other point in the room is there are other areas in which we would be working with groups where, we would offset that staff cost, or we would be bringing this forward, thinking about like the COAD work, maybe more so than the Core 3 work, where we're engaging with communities. Again, the strategic planning work that we're doing with communities, those are natural places where our staff time is already covered. And we'll be able to support that work. And then, Tim, you brought up a good point that I wanted to clarify. We are required to administer 20 grants a year, but we are not required to facilitate all of those discussions or processes. So we are the administrator of that grant to that project, but that community champion or that nonprofit will be the ones carrying out the work. So it's actually relieving some of the staff burden that we originally or typically see with some of this work, where we're saying we don't have money to give you, but we have staff time and capacity. It's actually saying, here you go, community or nonprofit organization, neighborhood association. We support you in this project and process, and we're a partner, but we're certainly not responsible for carrying out all of the duties as assigned for that. And I think those were the 2 points that I wanted to. Oh, and then there was a third one, which is, you were talking about the reporting and some of that burden. The Aspen Institute has created a set of tools and templates for us to use. And again, we'll want to make sure that those are aligning politically, et cetera, aren't pushing anything onto communities, but it is meant to support communities in relieving some of that administrative burden for both us and the organizations that are applying for the grants.
And I just wanted to back that up too with Shelby, that, looking at it, that they're really well supported by, Lilly. There's a Lilly endowment that is tied to the Aspen Institute, which is another kind of division of Eli Lilly, but the whole family has dedicated a large percentage of money towards this. And there is quite a bit of administrative support, from what I can tell and reading this and some of the case studies, that use cases, I should say, that have done quite well.
So, Councilor Solis from Madras has had his hand up for a while. So, Gabe, you want to go ahead and ask your question or make your comment?
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. first off, apologize for being late. Had a work thing come up that I did not anticipate taking me as long as it did. So, I'm curious, Tammy, is there a deadline on accepting this? I know you talked about the fact that COIC applied for it early because it came up after our November meeting, so went ahead and applied and surprisingly were awarded it. Do you have a deadline to accept that award?
We do not yet. We also we don't have a contract yet, which is usually where it would then trigger timeline. And the chair and I spoke about that when I was saying, I don't know what that looks like. And so you could put this off until January. I can't imagine that they're gonna send us a contract tomorrow and it's going to be required to be signed within, 30 days. So, I mean, and that sort of goes against what we're getting from this, which is they're trying to build community partners. My anticipation is that they're going to be working with us of what that looks like. Now, whether we could change the contract language or not, I highly doubt. But the timing of the contract, I feel like it would be just fine to go bring this back to January or, I don't feel like that's going to be an issue.
Then, Chair, that would be my proposal. I've heard a lot of concerns from other board members. I share those concerns. And I personally don't like ever agreeing or accepting or an award of a contract that I haven't seen. I'd prefer to be able to see it and glance through it and see what the terms of that item are. So I would propose we move this item to the January or February meeting.
And I want to so I don't know that we're asking the board to review the contract and look over all the terms and then as a board determine. I think we want to, we're looking for what is it that they're requiring us to do? And is that as an organization, something that we are willing to, agree to? So I like that route. That is cleanest. And this, we learned actually less than a week ago before we could send this out that, all this had come forward. So I appreciate the fact that we're partnering here as well to get through this and see if it's the right thing for us to do.
Any concerns why it came back so quickly? When I play poker and somebody snapped all my legs.
Yeah.
It's not really good. Any idea? I think Shelby said something about 1 out of 25 applicants, was that?
So in
One out of 25 nationally that were selected.
Yeah.
Wow.
And what's also
There were
interesting is
25 selected.
25 selected out.
yeah,
Right. So
even their timelines were off. If you look at the grant itself, those timelines are not relevant to the timelines in which we were actually part of. They were saying they were awarding by December, the checks will be cut by December 1st and etc. So it's all been very, the only thing I can liken it to is that sometimes there's that type of sort of vagueness when you are developing something. And they clearly have a team that's looking and working on this. And my 2 cents would be that if there's a matchup between rural conversation and rural community building, and you see what we do, it's about as easy of a box to check that is what we are already doing. And so I too share, that's why the language in the contract matters a great deal. They did seem very excited about our application. Yeah,
Well, and didn't you mention there's a training in January?
well, there
So
is a training in
So
January,
if there's
yes.
a training in January, they're gonna want, I can see why they're on an expedited timeline if they want their 25 communities to hurry up, sign a contract and come to Hoboken, New Jersey on the 15th of January for a training that has already probably had the facilities reserved and
Yeah,
meals ordered, that,
yeah.
they're rolling and
I mean, it could, to their credit, it could be that they're trying to be somewhat nimble and move quickly, and when they get a good application, this fits, like, let's go, and they're trying not to be too, foundation's gonna be plotting to like.
Oh, boy.
It's
So
They're gonna be more nimble.
back to
sure,
Matt's
but-
kind of concept of what are we stepping into here and make sure it's not political. I always go back to this kind of dimensions of community vitality. Economic development, healthcare, education, natural resources, just the things that matter to us. And then we already know COIC's got the tri-county area kind of culture, you know, the last 50 years of this being an organization. So, I mean, it seemed like a great thing. So I mean, I'd be supportive of this thing, but we should be doing it with a purpose, I guess, is the conclusion here. You know, economic development thing is the thing that's popping up these days. But also healthcare is so important. You know, obviously it's nice to have a community meeting to make sure we all know each other and get along, but economic development, healthcare, maybe two areas to focus on.
And that's helpful, because it also, some of that rural community building piece could very easily be that, and I think the Newberry Regional Partnership is an excellent example.
And they break it up into about 4 or 5 aspects to the
Yep.
efforts.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the concerns about administrative burden are really legitimate. Like, it strikes me as not adequate. That's sort of my first blush on it. I also think that they're probably gonna learn that 2,500, 5,000 is still not enough money. They probably need to double or triple those dollar amounts to make these really effective. But that's what you're suggesting, is that they're trying to learn about that. I think I'd be really curious if you could learn from these local foundations, Ford Family Fund and Roundhouse. What do they have to say? Do they know anything about these guys? Have they already worked with them? Do they think there's real potential where we're taking some risk in a pilot, but it could transform into something that is perhaps a good thing for COIC in our region over time, and we have to be willing to engage in the beginning to get that outcome. But there needs to be language that says there is no payback requirement of any of that 225 if we don't secure match. If that language, if it's not clear on that, then I don't think we should sign it.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, because for really, you're taking on 4 years of admin here for $25,000. That's not barely $7 grand. I mean, it's just not.
Yeah, but again, we're embedding it with, we're not starting something new.
No, I know, but still,
Yeah, but I hear.
realistically.
Yeah.
Well,
then
this is expensive stuff.
So.
We're leveraging it with other funds. I think that's the thing is, if we didn't have the other funds, we wouldn't be able to take on this project. It would totally be off the table. Only because we have those other foundation funds and we've been doing this work for so many years already. And we have the contacts that we'd be able to leverage this and not have it add so much to our plate.
Yeah, so I mean, some risk on our part if this has potential to pay off, and if you learn from other foundations, and you know, these guys are pretty good partners and let's get going with them. It could be advantageous for COIC in the region.
Maybe they want to partner with Ford and double what we're doing in rural capacity building.
Assuming they get more for
community building, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and Ford's been really a great partner. I do know that Roundhouse is looking, Aaron in particular, who's the executive for Roundhouse, how they leverage each other. And so there's a lot of discussion around foundations of how they partner together towards certain initiatives and be able to not be the one who's only the one who's looked to for a certain type of funding. So but I appreciate all of your questions. They are the questions that we had chatted about, and all of this. It's a unique one. And so how about we bring it back, and we will, obviously the contract's gonna need to land here soon, or we won't be able to be in Hoboken, wherever that is. New Jersey. Okay.
Yeah, on the 15th.
On the 15th.
My gut is that these grants are designed to increase the quantity of conversations, not necessarily the focus of the regular conversations. And in listening to the three of you talk about it, it sounds to me like you have confidence that unless there's a flying ointment, these funds will augment work that you are already doing, not add to your work capacity.
Yeah.
And I think if that's the case, then I absolutely support moving forward with this, provided that there isn't that, that deal with the devil in the background.
Yeah.
My concern is if we're mandated to do X number of grants per year, well, what happens if you only have 15 applications?
Well, it sounds like we can carry it forward.
And
At least so far, that's what.
Yeah, we wanna better understand why 20.
Yeah, if we have to keep it open for 4 years, but we don't have to fund any grants in year 4, then I think we're fine. But I think like if it's,
Yeah.
if we're mandated to do funds, to do grants,
Yeah.
or we have to go out and hunt for them, that's not effective use of your time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's not the read that I'm getting from Shelby, it's not the read that I'm getting from either of you, it's that this is going to allow you to continue to do the work that you're already doing.
I'm kind of intrigued by the storytelling and the community celebration, so I'd kind of like to just think about some ideas of what that would be. So in my own life right now, I'm like, can we just celebrate when we get through a hard thing instead of like, got through the hard thing, let's do the next hard work. So anyway, that's a focus right now that I think in our communities that we really need that, just to get some more hope.
Yeah.
Like we've been through COVID, could we celebrate, and build together,
I'm
or whatever,
confident if it
whatever.
could be used for like national night out, or you
Yeah.
know, if there's
Yeah.
capacity
I
for
thought
that,
of-
or
I-
listening
yeah,
sessions with
pancakes.
Police or Culver.
I mean,
Yeah.
when you're doing the crawdad feed, the pancakes.
Chicken
um,
and waffles.
Well, no,
I'd rather go southern thing.
Metolius and Culver have particular
Yeah.
events
For
that,
our pancake thing, we could have bacon and sausage. Is that
well,
possible?
so, yeah.
The theme of
Yeah.
everybody, the theme of everybody is what the contract's gonna say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
So
I'm with you.
that is what every question, every
Yeah.
opinion, I
Yeah.
think everybody's made good comments, but I think we need to see what is written.
Got it.
Make a
Yeah.
decision.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
then we can make an informed decision. That's just my 2 cents.
I agree with everything. Thank you for that. I love that we're already spending the money before we get it. The,
Oh, crawdad.
I think there might be an opportunity to make a motion to move forward with these conditions about contract review. And so the concerns are the administrative costs, which I think have already been kind of addressed. The no payback after 2 years if we don't hit the benchmarks. And then the concern that I brought up, which is ideology associated with it, which like they have a right to do whatever they want to do. It's whether or not it fits in the scope of what COIC is charged to do in our community. And I would say you've got to review the contract and make that decision. And if it's within the scope, then I support this under the other conditions. If it's outside of the scope, then we've got to have a different conversation. And so I think the concerns, from my perspective, could lead to a motion with the conditions be close to what you recommended. So we're back to the starting point at the end here.
I think there's some subtleties there, we probably, I would agree to table it until a future meeting.
That's
just because we need to have a better understanding of the subject of the contract.
How do we then hit the January kickoff?
Because our,
You mean,
in theory, we would be meeting on Thursday, January, so
Yeah,
our first meeting would be on January 8th.
How about this as a suggestion? So what we could do, and I appreciate, yes. So first of all, I would say that I want us to lead with what's right by our organization. If we are not at the January get together and they want us as a host, that they would still take us as a host. That's sort of how I would view that.
I agree.
And so starting with what protects our organization and our team in terms of the long game. So why don't we can reach out to them and ask, when shall we anticipate seeing that contract, knowing that you're asking us to maybe have somebody fly soon. We can route that. You could make this decision contingent upon the review of that. So that when we have it and you can see it, and I could do a quick memo of what it looks like and even a legal review if needed. And kick that to you, and then with a very short turnaround, either thumbs up or not. I have the discretion to sign the contract, but what you would be doing is saying to me, if there are further conversations and we need to bring it back to January, then that's saying that we're not moving forward until that meeting. So, I know it's not ideal, but it does allow us, what we would be doing then is working with the Aspen Institute, that we would not be at their shindig. And that if they still want us as a host, that we would continue forward and be able to go through the
I
contract
predict there
process
would be
this
their
January.
And in that, Tammy, you mentioned in that suggested motion, it's all about pending the contract agreement.
Right. Exactly. So that's sort of what I'm saying.
I know you're just framing it. I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think the motion speaks to what we're all concerned about. When you have that pending contract agreement in there, I feel comfortable with it. I think it encompasses what we all understand.
If they're doing this as a learning opportunity, a good learning opportunity for them would be to realize you guys are moving faster than the organizations you're wanting to work with. So you need to slow your roll
Yes, exactly.
and see what they come back with.
Back the truck up.
No, we can't do this. You have to be here in January, then we know the kind of flexibility that they're describing.
Yeah.
Is not the kind of flexibility that they're gonna live with.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think that would be a good indicator as to what kind of partner they would be going forward anyway.
So are people okay with just pending contract agreement in the motion or want?
Get more details to what those points.
I'd like to see at least the thing about the.
Yeah.
Details.
I'll way back.
My thought is, great conversation, but let's punt it. We'll know a lot more. If it's the right fit, they'll be sending you a ticket the day you sign it or whatever. Hoboken.
Yeah. We'll pitch in for a code.
See if they'll cover the cost of the refundable option on the plane tickets.
So
But that's.
Spend the 36.90.
I just think
Yeah.
we need contract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my thing.
But we've had a
So we're
great
gonna-
conversation. Everybody knows about it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll take as long once the contract.
Oh, yeah.
turns through
Oh,
the
yeah.
cash. No, because we know what we are worried about. I thought this was gonna be really short.
Me too.
It's still ahead of schedule.
We
Yeah,
thought,
I know.
we thought it was gonna take.
You know. That's for, I know.
So we're tabling and that makes good sense. And I will communicate when we get the contract anyway, just so that we're not, perfect, hold up, perfect. So, okay. Shall we, next
Yep,
item?
next item.
Okay, so this, no action, just wanted to bring this forward as we will be selecting annually, as we always do, our leadership for this board. And that also could inform what the executive committee looks like as well. The chair and vice chair are able to continue forward. We haven't determined whether they are wanting to stay in their current seats. But just wanting to let you know that we will be electing new board leadership or continuing with the same board leadership at the January meeting. So if you are interested in nominating someone, including yourself, please let me know and we will be creating a slate. If there is someone who's been nominated and they are not currently in a leadership role, then I will reach out to them and make sure that they are interested in serving. And then we will have a slate. We are required by law to take nominations from the floor. It's incredibly awkward. We call it out 3 times. No one says anything and then we move forward. But just know that that's coming on the horizon in the January meeting as well. For the board leadership, those positions per our bylaws do need to be elected official members.
That's part.
That is the best part. So those of you that are in appointed positions, you're off the hook, but we do ask that if you have somebody you'd like to nominate, please do so. In addition to that, depending on who is nominated, could change the complexity of the executive committee, because the executive committee, regardless of leadership positions, the 3 county commissioners are always as well. So this is just information. If you're interested in serving, if you are currently serving and interested in continuing to serve, or if you are an appointed member and you really nominate or anyone wants to nominate, please do so. Please reach out to Kimberly and then she will create a slate. I will do the outreach and January we will have our votes. Any questions? Okay, so that's it.
So,
We need to talk about whether it's January 8th, especially.
I guess I assume that was the plan. January 1st is obviously New Year's Day, so we're not gonna meet that, right?
No, I don't think so.
Won't be in the shape of. So the next Thursday would be January.
We could play some football on this screen and
Yeah,
it's not that
well,
bad. We could, we have buses, so we could do some designated.
That's
Too
fine.
many.
For designated
I was like,
maps.
no. All right. Yeah.
Yes, is that good for everybody, generally speaking?
Yeah, I won't be around first, so the 8th will be better.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll plan on 8. Quick roundtable. Does anybody have any announcements that they want to share or anything going on in their community they want to share with us?
Special thanks to Christine. I was just sitting here thinking, well, last time I saw you was down in Eugene. But it was Central Oregon Visitors Association supported by Sun River Resort for the Taste of the Town effort sharing each county's bounty at an event. So, but yeah, great to see you. And it was funny. I was sitting here thinking, oh yeah, that's where I saw you last a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and that's actually where I saw
You saw me?
Susan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you said, I think I know
I
you,
know, I'm
and I
like,
go, yes, I know.
Relationship.
Yeah.
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 And Deschutes County did a very nice job, you had a very nice exhibit, in fact, Burke County is very jealous. So we're gonna work.
We're gonna pick her up next year. We have plans
Here we
to
go.
represent the region. Did they have Rocky Mountain oysters this year?
No,
Oh,
they did have shrimp cocktail,
okay.
they had
Oh,
salmon and fried bread.
Fried bread.
They had pepperoni sticks,
Here's all kinds.
jerky.
And they kind of dialed back the alcohol a little bit, which is
Oh.
probably good. Cause it was like every county brought something that was brewed in their county, all of a sudden it's like, uh-oh, we brought food.
But after you had the first, like I had the first red wine that was offered, and then I went and I sipped the second, I thought, I don't even want any more, it was like, yeah, it's too much of the.
But there was good.
The beer you could do, there was excellent food, and excellent stuff, and candles and jams, and
No, nice.
Hood River gave out pears. Oh, that's really nice.
Excellent.
That was at the Association of Oregon Counties, AOC, because there's League of Oregon Cities too, LOCs, I'm sure they have their events. Cool.
It's our honor.
Yeah.
And then I went to National Association of Counties hosted me to go to a peer exchange on energy. I just got back last night, it was at Columbia River, about solar, wind and data centers. And supposedly in 2030, we're gonna start having rolling blackouts because of our energy. And they're trying to form an alliance for transmission because can produce energy, we're not transmitting it through the state. It was and there was 50 to 60 people there from almost all the states in the United States, which is very interesting to see their different philosophies. Missouri, if you have renewable energy, 50% of the renewable energy has to stay in your state. Whereas like Sherman County and Wasco are exporting it to Seattle, just like we are. I thought, now that's an interesting concept. Some of the states have no personal property taxes, so when they get the data centers, they're basically just taxing the shell and not getting any money for personal property. It very, really educational, very
Anything around
educational.
geothermal?
They weren't talking about geothermal, it was hydroelectric, solar, and no mention, like one little mention of nuclear.
Interesting.
Google mentioned that they are now doing nuclear in, small modules for data centers, and one of the things they're talking about is they had the Navajo Nation was there, the head of that. And they wanna go into the Navajo Nation because of the territory. They have a water issue, obviously, and also that, and that was something that was mentioned during the Navajo with the Navajo Nation. And the gal there asked very, very good questions about, trying to get benefits back to the tribe. So it's kind of really good because you got all these aspects. So I was very pleased I got invited. And it was totally paid for, the taxpayers didn't have to pay them, and that's always good.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Somebody paid.
Yes.
I say it's philanthropy. So I'm sure it was one of those companies, but
There
they
you
don't
go,
tell
there
me
you
what it was, Tony. They just say it's philanthropy. So how do I know Daddy Warbucks just showed up and emptied
Somebody
his,
did it, yeah.
Yeah.
emptied his pocket?
So I might mention today, it was publicly announced that Lexington Manufacturing, a company from Coon Rapids, Michigan, has bought the secondary wood products plant in Prineville, gonna reopen it. Running 7 lines for veneer and other kinds of things. So,
I think you
That's a
sent me
big
that.
deal.
email,
I sent
but
that to
think
you
I
today.
did not have a chance to read it, but I.
the rumor's been going around for about a month and a half that there was somebody ready to buy it. The folks involved in it locally couldn't speak about it, but today it became public.
Yeah, Coon Rapids is in Minnesota.
And
Yeah,
the senator from Minnesota.
Oh, you're right, it is in Minnesota.
I was thinking, wow, Coon Rapids, I'd never heard of that.
Coon Rapids, you're right, Minnesota.
And I wouldn't have known until I looked it up, but it's MI, so that was a good, you know.
Well, good for you. You know, that's your little trivia of that.
Looks like they have plants in Georgia and Indiana as well.
Yeah. And which
So
facility
maybe
did
we
they
can
buy?
get
Is
some
it
timber
the,
sales.
the Enduro facility?
Yeah.
Good.
Was there an Owens Corn?
That's who owned it most of it.
Okay, very good.
They closed, they were
Yeah.
108.
But it was Andorra, then it was something else, then it was Owens Corning, and then
Okay,
it
so
was
same
Mason.
facility.
I
Okay,
think Masonite was the
Yeah.
official last name.
love it. Okay, that's exceptional. That's really great.
But it doesn't say how many employees they plan to bring back, but it sounds like a full-fledged operation, so.
That's great.
No, hopefully some of our timber sales can now be sold.
Yeah, so, AFRC, which is the American Forest Resource Council, many counties, governments belong to the organization. It's an industry organization. They're holding their meeting for the Ochiko Deschutes Forest on Friday, tomorrow morning at the Ochiko Forest Supervisor's office. And they talk about all kinds of things, logging, forest sales. But they also want to hear an update on the city's biomass plant. So Marv, I sent a note to the city and asked, is there an update? No. And the word I got was, we're looking for someone to buy the pile of paperwork and move the project forward. So I think the city's done what the city's done. But hopefully it's not a dead project. There's too much good work put into it. And too much good that can come from. Yeah.
I attended the Ben Chamber of Commerce Impact Breakfast, half-day event on November 18th it was. Yeah.
Thank you for posting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think almost every speaker on stage gave credit to Central Oregon communities, the cities and the counties for the great job that we've done as a collective area and region for the last 2 decades. So I want to give credit to our elected leaders, our business leaders, everybody who's helped make that happen for where we are today. That easily is the most optimistic thing that came out of the 4 hours of presentations regarding the general state of Oregon affairs, some of the headwinds that the state and perhaps our area face as well. But there's no doubt that everybody recognized the counties and the cities in this region have fared far better than the rest of the state for the last 3 years, and we are positioned to continue that trend as long as we keep making great decisions. So, anyhow, thanks to our elected leaders, thanks to our business leaders.
Pressure's on.
Yeah.
So this is a kind of federal thing, but the secure rural school funding. So in Crook County, we received 800,000 for our roads and 400 for, or maybe it's reversed for schools. Anyway, I went to the PILT, payment in lieu of taxes, which is what they pay you for your federal ground, to the fly-in and did that. And I got a letter or email today thanking for my participation because 80 of senators and congressmen have signed on to it, and it is going to go to the House. And if it is voted on December 9th, that funding will be reinstated, which is huge for our small community.
Was that part of the big beautiful bill? So they're reinstating something?
Well, what happened when you get back in Washington DC, what they say is they authorized SRS, but it went to the Department of Agriculture and they lost the money. The Department of Agriculture says they never gave them the money. So the PILT is there, but this SRS has kind of been defunct. And for us, it's 1.2 million, which is a big impact on our schools and our roads, particularly our county roads. So, yeah.
But it
So-
was left out of the big
Yes,
beautiful bill.
it was left out because Congress wouldn't pass it. The Senate did.
Yeah.
But I saw that like Janelle Biden was one of the signatories on the thing today. Obviously Merkley and Wyden were on there. I recognized some of California was on there, which was good. So there were quite a few people that I recognized on there. So keep your fingers crossed that that gets crossed and we can get that funding. Jefferson, I know. I don't know about you guys. You must have SRS. Yeah. All 3 of us will be very impacted if we get that funding.
In the process you went through to do that, congratulations. I hope that goes through. I've been following that with what's been happening. But was there any conversation about resurrecting timber harvesting in an environmentally friendly, sustainable way that generates tax revenue to take advantage of the fuel for the forest fires we have?
I would say you have that.
Yeah.
What our basis was to get the congressional, what it is the East Coast has no public land or barely any public land.
Totally understand.
And so we're trying to tell them why we needed this to go through. So I was with Wyoming, Colorado, and Utah, and we kind of did a roundtable thing with the senators and with the congressmen. And I was very lucky, the people I was with were like a tag team. We just kind of knew you would start a point and you would, and we kind of really worked, there was a chemistry with us. So it's very successful. So no, the timber harvest is always out there. There's the 25% timber receipts. But right now we need the SRS. So you could answer more. Yes, the philosophy is to get out there. But like you take our forests, we have timber sales that nobody will buy, and a lot is your secondary products, because your secondary products, there's nothing you can do with it.
Well,
And the sawmills are closed.
yeah, this all started in the mid-90s. That's when SRS was 98, I think,
Yeah.
2001.
Because of 25, yeah.
But I think back to Greg Walden, when he was our representative, to today, there have been probably a dozen federal bills passed to try to get us back in the woods after the 90s. All of those passed. Nothing has ever happened. They all say that unless we fix third-party lawsuits, the Clean Water Act and the ESA Act, that those three acts give whoever wants to sue so much power. They don't have to win. It stalls.
They just stall.
And they also, the other fourth thing that has to get fixed is the legislation that allows those lawyers to be paid by the federal government, no matter if they win or lose. Yeah, the Access to Justice Act. Because that kind of fuels all of those third-party lawsuits. So, there's a most recent one, Fix Our Forests. That's the current legislative bill in Washington. It looks like it's gonna pass. It'll get signed by the president. The president has executive orders to significantly increase timber outputs. The reality today is, as Commissioner Hemrick said, when I moved to Prineville in '87, we had 5 working sawmills. We have none. Central Oregon had many sawmills. We have Gilcrest left. Gilcrest is the only mill in Eastern Oregon that will cut pine. So, like the Ochicos is a pine forest mostly. The Deschutes is a fir forest. So, but again, we gotta haul the fir logs over to the valley.
I
That's
think
where the sawmills are.
Gilchrist is rocking and rolling right now too, and they're coming from all over the place.
Yeah, well, and
So I
they
don't
can,
know.
when you're the only guy in town, you kind of control the market, so. Timber's not worth anything at the moment, unfortunately. The private landowners that are trying to harvest, they're hardly covering their costs. It's not a moneymaker, but they're improving the health of the stand, and they think that, they're like a farmer, they're the eternal optimist, and they're sure the market will get better sometime. So let's prepare for it. So that's a benefit. That
But when
the
you,
infrastructure's gone. I mean, the sawmills. I think have 2 families left that run logging operations in Fort County. So we don't have SARs. My daughter's father-in-law is on a sawing crew. When they're cutting timber, they can't get log trucks. So there's a log truck shortage. So it's all screwed up. So bottom line is we can pass all the bills we want. The president can sign all the executive orders he wants. How it gets to the ground, it'll be years.
Yeah, and that
it's
liability.
that whole
you're talking
chain
about,
is
yeah.
dysfunctional. It's just, yeah,
We've screwed it up. So
pretty bad. And what's sad is like in a riparian, you have the pine that are infiltrating the riparian. I mean, you have an overcrowding out there. And I lease a ranch that's about 12,000 acres. Sits under Snow Mountain. And there is there's the pine beetle, and then there's sudden fir death. And so all I need is one good lightning strike and it's gone. And you know that, and it's there, and that's it. And it's gonna go all the way to Burns when it goes, because that whole forest is happening. It's a sad, but there's 45 of us in the rural or fire protection thing, and by God, we're pretty darn good. We put out 11 fires last year, so there you go.
Good job.
Then,
There you go.
beneficially combusting biomass and rotting wood, standing dead wood. What a value.
Yeah, well, that's why we're all excited with the cities project. I mean, that would have,
So trace us back to Prineville, let's
that would
go.
have considered, that would have put a lot of people
It's
back in the
Prineville
woods.
and Crook County good, yay.
But the sad part is for Prineville, just the last bit of timber history is it's been since the mid-90s, since log trucks really rolled through Prineville. And that's 30 years ago. The population of Prineville today, probably 20%, maybe it's a little higher, of the current population remembers that. The other, at least 50% of the population, they don't know what 100 log trucks through Prineville looks like.
I remember the timber dollars that people were stamping and
Oh,
all that.
And, when, like with the city's project, they were gonna bring 100 log trucks or van trucks through town with wood chips.
You talk about
They
complaint.
were
gonna come through town,
You would have to build a bypass, because it would all come from the east, it had to get to the west, so, but somehow, but again, people wanna get back in the woods. But then we don't wanna accept the impact of what that back in the woods
Well,
looks like, so.
We had 261,000 acres burned around my ranch with the Durgan and the Wiley Flat and the Rail Ridge and all of that. They wanted to go in and clear 20 feet from the road so that people could go and be safe, just to be safe, get down the downed trees, clean out the culverts, do that. And the environmentalists put a thing on. I mean, it's ridiculous. So they had to go to a categorical exclusion. But basically you wanna say, this isn't an environmental issue. They're burnt out. This is a safety issue to get people back in there to be in the forest. And that's where you just get really infuriated.
Yeah. The whole solution is right in front of us. When we've got every new building in the state of Oregon and the state of Washington going out with mass timber and laminated timber. And everybody is applauding this beautiful wood in the buildings that now can go up 70, I think 80 stories actually. And then we've got the places in Oregon that can't harvest the wood for all the reasons we just talked about. And then we've got a foreign company coming into the Port of Portland to do it. And it's just, I don't understand how we got here.
And the wood is coming from Canada.
Right, I know, yeah, we're importing it.
Yeah.
I get it, I said, we messed it up, so.
It's coming from Canada, that's where it's coming.
Yeah, and now we celebrate the buildings made out of the industry that we killed.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Well, we've got, what time is it?
Any other announcements?
Oh, we still have 5 minutes. Okay, I never mentioned.
Well, this is a small announcement to some people, but we now have the ability to buy gasoline in the toll roads. We have a gas station in our little store going for quite some time. They got the little store going and it really is nice to be able to go and buy your gas on your way out of town as well. So not nearly as important as some of these
No,
things.
that's great.
Well,
I think it's-
In January, you can apply for a small grant for the community gallery.
Hot dogs at the gas station.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go, perfect, there's our first grant.
Yes, perfect.
$5,000, you can buy everybody in town a hot dog and that's gonna.
Yes.
So shall we get up 5 minutes early?
Yeah, I just want to say that in your packet, please note that we are January 12th welcoming our new Community and Economic Development Director, who is coming from the city of Boise. He's moving his family here and super excited to join the team. So Sean Keithley is his name. And we also have a Keith Staley, so we'll be trying not to transpose those names, but Sean Keithley was super excited to be welcoming him. We'll be sending out a message, given just the complexities of his current position and the transfer and all that. We had held off, but just wanted to make sure that I brought to your attention that that is happening and he's super excited. And probably not as excited as we are to have him, so.
Is the next meeting on the 8th?
Yes.
Okay, that's also Keller Council too.
I'm probably not gonna be able to go because it's Sunday night.
Oh, very good, okay,
So-
all right.
With that.
Sorry, speaking of neighbor impact, in front of you, hopefully everyone had a
Yes,
holiday
that's
card. And so, in the past, we've done the same thing, but we've made a donation in your name to Neighbor Impact, to the food bank. And so that is our holiday gift to all of you. And so can't think of another thing to do this year, knowing that that is something that our community is struggling with, is access to food. And so the contribution will provide over 3,000 meals to the region. And just wanted to say that that is our thank you for being part of the Central Intergovernmental Council.
That is a.
Yes, choosing neighbor,
Yeah,
absolutely, yes, because it's regional and it supports all of the region, and it's an opportunity for us to do that.
We'll celebrate
Thank
that.
you.
Yay, okay.
That's wonderful.
Okay, well, with that, we're adjourned.
Yeah.
I could, thank you.
My kids go to